Turn and burn at your convenience.
Copy that. Start number 3.
Fuel 3.
Cantankerous is a KC-135 with the 63rd Air Refueling Squadron at Selfridge Air National Guard Base near Detroit, Michigan. Much has changed at this base since it first opened in 1917, then one of only 9 military airfields in the United States, opened just 14 years since the Wright brothers invented the first powered and controlled aircraft. The field was named in honor of Lieutenant Thomas Selfridge, a young aviator who had crashed during a flight with Orville Wright. Selfridge died from a head injury. Orville broke a leg and 4 ribs. After World War I, Selfridge became the permanent home of the 1st Pursuit Group, and in 1922, Major Carl Spaatz took command of the base when it was declared a permanent military installation. The Major had made quite a name for himself, shooting down 3 enemy planes during the war. On New Year's Day, 1929, he made history by commanding a 4-man team that refueled while flying behind a Douglas C-1. A 50-foot fire hose was used to transfer fuel, and Spaatz himself was drenched in gas during the process, causing him to strip down naked wearing only his parachute. One of the 3 engines on their Fokker C-2A finally gave out, and the team safely landed in Los Angeles after nearly 151 hours of non-stop flight. Today, air refueling is much more common.
Nice fuel closure rate. 50 feet. 40 feet. 5 feet. Contact. Take your gas.
Giant B-52 bombers connect to the KC-135, transferring thousands of gallons of gas in just a few minutes. This allows the Stratofortress unlimited range, striking targets anywhere in the world in just a matter of hours. Today's mission is just a training.
We refueled it on AR Track 112, which kind of starts over Arkansas and ends over Oklahoma City. It took us about an hour and 45 minutes to get from Michigan down to the track. We were on track with the buff for about 35 minutes. Gave him a little bit of gas, and he did some of his training requirements, and then we came straight back here.
The air crews on both the bomber and the tanker have gotten smaller over the years. The B-52 no longer flies with a gunner, and the KC-135 has new electronics that eliminated the navigator position.
People at first didn't like the idea of having a box telling you what to do, the electronics in the aircraft, but as we got used to it and got more comfortable with the system, it's a really good system. Not to say I don't miss the navigators on the airplane, but it works just fine that way.
5, 220 at 21, gusting 27, I'm showing variable 210 to 260. Only 19, you're clear for takeoff.
Change is inevitable with the military, and many things have changed at Selfridge since the days of barnstorming biplanes. Today's flight is commanded by a female pilot, unheard of for the airfield's first 60 years, and only in the last decade have female pilots gone into combat.
I think in a lot of sense I feel like the little sister around the squadron, and we have a female boom operator. She and I are kind of the same boat. We both feel like little sisters.
60 years before Captain Schwartz was cleared for takeoff here, a series of groundbreaking flights were taking place. At Selfridge, a new squadron had arrived from a little-known training field down south.
Deep inside Alabama is a famous school called the Tuskegee Institute. It was founded on July 4th of 1881. And since that Independence Day, it has graduated many thousands into agriculture, into science, into industry. This school was the first of its kind.
At Tuskegee, African-American college graduates were trained in aeronautics, flying simulators, and slow basic trainers before heading to Michigan for advanced training.
With basic completed, the new pilots are sent to Selfridge Field for advanced courses in strafing and skip bombing. Here, for the first time, they will fly P-40s, now redesigned and adapted to latest attack methods.
One pilot who was glad to be heading north was Alex Jefferson.
Oh, that was a great thing to go see coming back home, coming back to Detroit, and I was being close to home. Of course, I didn't come home every night. I came home on the weekends, but it was great.
At Selfridge, the young pilots transitioned into the P-39 Airacobra.
The Airacobra had the engine sitting behind you, the Allison engine, which was lousy, drivetrain underneath to the prop, and a 37mm cannon out through the hub of it. Now, straight and level, beautiful airplane, straight and level. But you try to turn that son of a gun, the wing loading was too high and she'd start vibrating and snap over on you. That was the danger.
The training of black pilots was called the Tuskegee Experiment. Today we know it as a giant stride forward in equality.
These men were pioneers of a venture so new that you who stand here before me now, after 3 years, may still be considered forerunners in the movement which has given you a place in the fighting men of the sky.
The young officers may have had a place in the sky, but they didn't have one at Lufberry Hall, the officers' club at Selfridge.
It was off limits. It was off limits. They told us they took a room in the barracks, building 304. Building 304. Took one room and put up a wooden bar and said, "Okay, this is your officers' club. This is your bar." Wouldn't let us go into Lufberry Hall.
Many of the Tuskegee Airmen would simply walk into Lufberry Hall, which was located right where this parking lot is now. They would remind their superiors that they were required to support the club and that dues were coming out of their paychecks. They were threatened with court-martial if they stayed.
All of a sudden one day we were out over Lake Huron and gunnery, and the radio said, "All officers report to the post theater on the double as you are." We got there, standing around. At the time, approximately 75 to 100 white officers on post, 50 or 60 black officers, and somebody said, "Change up." We popped two, and down there strolls a two-star general. We looked at each other and said, "What the hell's going on?" O.D. Hunter, two-star Major General O.D. Hunter. He ran it on and on for about 5 or 10 minutes. These are the words he said: "Gentlemen, this is my airfield. As long as I'm in command, there'll be no socialization between white and colored officers. Are there any questions? If there are, I'll deal with that man personally." Naturally, you keep your mouth shut. We're all second lieutenants, and we had 1 or 2 first lieutenants.
Within a few days, the entire squadron was packed up and transferred. The B-25 bomber crews went to Kentucky, and Alex and his fighter pilot colleagues spent 3 days on a train heading back south.
And when the train stopped, every 10 feet, little white soldier with a rifle, hand grenades, and they'd been told a bad bunch of can't use the N-word, had rioted at Selfridge. That's our introduction to Walterboro, South Carolina, where the German POWs had more freedom on post. They could go into the PX anytime. We had to wait, even as an officer, we had to wait in certain hours. We had to line up.
Alex's squadron was soon shipped overseas to Italy at a base near Tumoli. Once enemy territory, the country had been in Allied hands for nearly a year. Now routine fighter missions from Italy were escorting bombers into Germany, Austria, Yugoslavia, and Ploesti, Romania. It was coverage that came a little too late for some bomber crews.
When P-38s went overhead to escort us, loved it. Give us fighter cover all the way to Holland. Once we got to Holland, they left. The Spitfires only took you, they had no range. They could just take you up to the middle of the English Channel and turn around and left you, naked.
Sonny Elliott grew up in Detroit reading about World War I adventures in early comic books, secret agents who flew biplanes and fought the evil Germans. Just after Pearl Harbor, he signed up to fight the new war that was waging in Europe.
We were way behind Germany in pilots, and so there was a government kind of plan. They called it CPTP, Civilian Pilot Training Program. Well, I'd learned enough about flying and G-8 and his battle aces, and I passed the exam. And if you passed the exam, they did 2 things. One, they would send you to ground school. If, when you went to ground school and learned that pretty well, then they would send you out to what is now Metropolitan Airport. It used to be Wayne County Airport. They had a school out there, and you would get free flying lessons.
Sonny was assigned to fly the Liberator B-24, a high-altitude bomber with a unique look and an expanded bomb capacity. It was faster than a flying Fortress, and even better, it was built near Sonny's hometown.
I felt great about it. I really did love it because I touched it. It was from Michigan. It was from my hometown. Didn't do us too much good, though.
With just 76 hours of training, Sonny was put to the ultimate test on a training flight from California to Nevada.
They always thought, at least I thought, and most of them thought the same thing, someone had been tinkering with the engines, and there could have been some sabotage. That was the initial thing, because I was over the mountains of California, the Sierra Nevada mountains, and at about, I guess what, 15,000, 18,000 feet, and two engines just blew up, and we had to get out. We bailed out when I finally got to one engine. I couldn't fly it on one engine. There were some pilots who were good enough to do that, but I didn't have, well, then we had one engine, so all of us bailed out. All 10 of us bailed out.
All of the crew survived, but many had broken bones. Sonny injured his back on landing and was hospitalized for several days before returning to the air for sub-chasing duties. Within 3 months of his accident, he was transferred to England to fly with the 392nd Heavy Bomber Group. After 14 missions, he was sent on a raid to hit a Nazi airplane factory in northern Germany.
The Gotha one that we were shot down on was at 28,000 feet. Temperature, I remember looking at my temperature gauge, it was 58 below zero. My airspeed indicator, well, it didn't indicate it, but it was roughly 300 and some odd miles an hour when we bailed out. And the fighter called, they were FW-190, Focke-Wulf, 190. We're off to our 2 o'clock position. They spun around and came head on. And they were just a whole group of them. And on their first pass, they hit the airplane and knocked out my number 1 engine and hit my number 4 engine. And I began to get shaky. And then the second pass, when they came through again, that's when they really hit us. They hit the number 3 engine, and my airplane began to burn. And that's when I figured, hey, they can buy another airplane. It'll be a little difficult to replace me. I better get out of here. So I hit the bailout button, which was a button on the pedestal. It rang a bell, and everybody got out.
The impact of the parachute opening pulled Sonny's boots right off, and he landed in the snow with few options to hide. One of the locals found him soon after.
The gentleman farmer, I called him that because he was not a bad-looking man, a German, looked like puttees, but they were high boots and a shooting jacket, and he had a .22 rifle. And the .22 rifle, when he holds it close to you with his finger on the trigger, the bore looks about like a 3-inch. Yes, sir.
7 months after Sonny was captured, Tuskegee Airman Alexander Jefferson was going to suffer the same fate. After successful bomber escort missions that wiped out Ploesti, Romania's oil refineries, the Red Tails were assigned to hit Nazi targets in southern France, strafing coastal monitoring facilities prior to the Allied invasion called Operation Dragoon.
Our job was to knock out the radar stations along the coast to prevent them from detecting ships coming across the horizon. The invasion came off on August 15th. On August 12th, the 301st was assigned to radar stations right outside the city of Toulon, southern France. And when we went across the target, Danny, which was on number 2, I saw him when he got hit. He went a little black puff of smoke, and he went out of my eyesight. He put it down in the water because he was afraid to bail out. The Germans went out and picked him up. I'm number 4, and when I went across the top of the target, at about treetop height, the iron shell came up through the floor, and I saw the hole in the top of the canopy.
German 20mm anti-aircraft rounds had gone right through his plane, and fire erupted through the floor of his P-51. Alex bailed out, and his buddies watched as the Mustang crashed.
Number 1 and number 3, they get through. They look back, they see my airplane go in. They didn't see me get out. So when they got back to the squadron, they said, Jeff bought the farm. What's that? $10,000 insurance to pay your parents the mortgage on the farm. My family got a KIA telegram. For about 2 months, they thought I was killed, until the International Red Cross had been into POW camp and sent a notice that I was a POW.
The color of Lieutenant Jefferson's skin meant he could be trusted by the prisoners at Stalag Luft III, knowing the Germans would never employ a black spy. He was placed in a prison that mainly housed downed airmen.
And I spent 9 months in Germany as a POW. Went to Stalag Luft III. Stalag is camp. Luft means air. A camp controlled by the Luftwaffe. Luft means air. Waffe is army. Literally, the Luftwaffe is the air army.
Alex passed the time sketching from his mission to France to the daily life at Stalag Luft 3, located near what is now Sagan, Poland.
I was treated as an officer and a gentleman. The rest of the guys saw my wings, my bar and the wings, and knew that I was a red tail. I was flying P-51 escort, and I was treated just another POW. And surprisingly, as an equal.
Most prisoners knew that the war would soon be over, monitoring Allied progress by English broadcasts.
We knew exactly every step of the way because we had small radios. Radios had been smuggled in, and we knew exactly we listened to BBC all the time. We knew where the Russians were, we knew where the Americans were, we knew the progress of the war. So we said anticipating, just waiting for the war to be over. That's all.
The Germans were well aware the Russians were coming, and they evacuated the camp to near the southern border of Deutschland.
In January 45, when the Russians started moving west, to prevent us from being liberated by the Russians, the Germans put us out on the road, and we walked 80 kilometers west, 20 below zero. And we were finally put into boxcars and 40 men or 8 horses. They packed 60 or 70 of us into those damn things. It was cold, 20 below zero. It's colder than hell. But we had scarves, we had gloves, but it was still cold. And many of us were emaciated because even what food we had, we still lost weight.
Further north, the prisoners at Stalag Luft 1 were learning key phrases to greet their Russian liberators.
Jetzt light, don't shoot. Ja, голодный, I'm hungry. Ja, amerikanski lodchik. That's good Russian, boy. They understood exactly what I wanted. But they were wild. They were wild. You had to tell them quickly you're an American airman or they'd kill you. They went through the town of Barth. They went through all the surrounding areas like the literal locusts through.
The Americans moved simultaneously into Munich, releasing not only the population of Stalag Luft 7A, but also Germany's first concentration camp at Dachau.
April 29, 1945, General Patton's Third Army liberated the camp. And somebody said, next day, we're waiting for transportation back. They said, there's a place down there with a lot of dead people. What the hell are you talking about? And we had no idea of Dachau. So we got a Jeep and we had to see this place where they had literally thousands of dead bodies stacked up like cordwood. You could smell the place a mile before you got to it because the ovens were still warm where they were burning bodies.
B-17s arrived to transport Sonny back into France, flying into a former Nazi airstrip near Janville.
Had several camps and they named them all after cigarettes. There was Camp Lucky Strike, Camp 20 Grand, and I was in Camp Lucky Strike. Not for long, because I ran into some guy who said, what are we sitting around here for? I said, where the hell are we gonna go? I got no uniform, my shoes don't fit right, I don't have any money, I don't have any ID. He said, well, get it in Paris. I said, in Paris? We're at Le Havre, that's 200 miles away, what are you? Follow me, Zippo. We got out and hitchhiked to Paris.
Both former POWs returned home to Detroit. Sonny became a fixture in television and radio, known as one of the first weather personalities in the Motor City.
As for Saturday, the clouds get heavier and they get darker and the day becomes drab and uncomfortable as a harmonica player with chapped lips.
Alex Jefferson used his science degree to teach elementary students, retiring as an assistant principal in 1980. He returned to Selfridge as a reservist, eventually achieving the rank of lieutenant colonel. Today, he's a distinguished guest of commanders who lead the airbase, a far cry from what happened in 1943. And Selfridge isn't the only Michigan airfield to boast training for the Tuskegee Airmen.
Negro pilots use some of the finest training bases in the United States. The Tuskegee Air Base at Tuskegee, Alabama was built entirely by Negroes. In addition to this $4 million establishment, the Negro training program operates the well-equipped Oscoda Air Base in Michigan for advanced training. At Oscoda, pilots also step up from the PT-13 trainers to fast, P-40 fighters.
Early stories say it was a fishing trip to Van Etten Lake that prompted a young lieutenant to mention the area to Major Carl Spotts. The community had recently been ravaged by a fire, and they were so eager to have the Army build an airfield that they raised $600 to clear 40 acres of land. By 1924, planes were a frequent sight on the frozen lake, and the facility was named Camp Skeel in honor of a 1st Pursuit Squadron pilot who was killed during the National Air Races in Ohio. Renamed Oscoda Army Airfield in 1943, the facility became the temporary home for the 100th Pursuit Squadron, better known as the Tuskegee Airmen. It was also used to train French pilots during the war. The jet age arrived in Michigan in May of 1947, when the first P-80 Shooting Star arrived at Selfridge. 2 years later, the explosion of a communist atomic bomb made the U.S. increase their defense network to an unparalleled level. This included radar sites in Michigan and jet squadrons at newly designated air bases at Selfridge and Oscoda. Jets arrived in Oscoda soon after another name change. F-86 Sabres came to the newly christened Wurtsmith Air Force Base, named for Major General Paul Wurtsmith, a Detroit native and World War II hero who had been killed in a B-25 crash. New long-range bombers called B-52 Stratofortresses were also taking flight beginning in 1952. On June 29, 1955, the first B-52 entered service in California.
Interestingly enough, I was a youngster. In fact, I was 11 as a dependent living at Castle Air Force Base when they delivered the first operational airplane in 1955. So I remember looking up and seeing it flying overhead and thought, boy, that's bigger.
Colonel Campbell has flown several aircraft, from cargo transports to F-16s. His favorite is nicknamed the Big Ugly Fellow, or Buff.
Oh. It's only one, sitting out there on the ramp, B-52. It's the most uncomfortable, loud, large airplane, but there's a comfort to it. She's a great old gal, just flies like a dream and takes a tremendous amount of punishment in combat, comes home.
Wurtsmith received the very first H model assigned to the Strategic Air Command, dubbed State of Michigan, May 11, 1961. 1961 would be a big year for Michigan's military population as 3 Strategic Air Command bases increased manpower, each with over a dozen B-52s and a wing of KC-135 tankers. KI Sawyer Air Force Base, the most northern of the facilities, was a former public airport that became a fighter base equipped with F-102s and eventually the F-101 Voodoo. In September of 1960, the 62nd Fighter Interceptor Squadron was honored for 3 years with no aircraft accidents. Marquette County received its first B-52s on August 4th. Kincheloe Air Force Base, located just south of Sault Ste. Marie, would land its first Buff later that November. Kincheloe, named for the supersonic test pilot who was the first to climb above 100,000 feet, also received a new line of defense missiles designed to shoot down Soviet bombers.
The range of the B missile is in excess of 400 miles, or approximately twice that of the A. For example, an area protection from Kincheloe from attacking aircraft ranges from Rochester, New York, to Columbus, Ohio, Muncie, Indiana, and as far west as Minneapolis, St. Paul, and Duluth.
The missile annex, located west of the base at Raco, included 28 shelters, which could be fired from Wisconsin if hostile aircraft approached the region. Within 4 years, Kincheloe Air Force Base had grown to a population of 11,000, and Michigan became the first state protected by the new Bomark B missile.
There will not be any Bomark firings at Kincheloe or any other base unless we are attacked. It is hoped, of course, that this situation will never arise. However, it is assuring to know that we have an effective defense system should we need it. Since our ability to defend North America from aerial attack is significantly strengthened by the addition of the Bomark B, we therefore believe that today, the operational date of the first of these new missile bases, Kincheloe, is an important milestone to our defense system.
Michigan would also have some of the newest bombers in SAC, and they were outfitted to handle the latest in nuclear weapons. Soon all the air bases in the state would be armed with Hound Dog missiles, standing to launch at a moment's notice. And while that strike would never occur, the B-52 would be called to action. Attacks on U.S. troops in Vietnam brought retaliation in the form of airstrikes, and tankers from Michigan's air bases were eventually called over for duty in Southeast Asia. B-52s were brought into the fight starting with arc-light missions in June of 1965. Michigan's H-model buffs stayed home, armed with nuclear weapons that would never be used during the war. Their crews were trained to fly earlier models and went overseas. 5,000 missions were flown that next year, and by 1968, over 20,000 arc lights were dropping bombs in Southeast Asia.
It's an airplane that I think a lot of, and it's been very good to me. It may be the only airplane, or maybe one or two others, that have been around long enough for a guy to stay affiliated with it forever and for his whole career. I'm real pleased. It can do things that no other airplane has ever done. It's still the only airplane in the world that can take off from anywhere on the globe and deliver a bomb to anywhere else, which seems to make certain bad guys a little nervous.